itself. So I'm a day scholar at NIT Warangal. Uh, I've got myself admitted into Arizona State University in Masters in Robotics and Automation Systems. So I've been working on this whole master process from like 8 months or so. Before this, I'm a design engineer at our own college's startup that's often back. I've been working there for like 15 months till now. I stopped it recently. Peace of mind. So that's it about me. If you
Right. Thank you,
want anything
Janav.
more, yeah.
Um, so thank you so much for coming to our for 2021 Fall Admit series by URA and MEA. I'm pretty sure that whatever you tell us over here is going to be super useful to your current juniors, us, and like the upcoming batches who are currently perceiving a lot during the online semesters. So we will start with a very basic question. So when did you like decided that you want to pursue masters? What was the reason behind it?
Oh, I have this quick career plan since like my inter itself. In intermediate itself, I've decided I have to go for masters because I didn't really find the course I wanted to pursue as a part of Bachelor of Technology course, in NITs or in IITs. The career I've chosen for myself from 10th standard itself is robotics, and I didn't find any robotics BTech in any college. You know that, right? In India,
Yeah, yeah.
we don't have any BTech in robotics in prominent colleges. So I've chosen it right in Inter itself that I'm going to go for masters, and I don't have to worry about placements and all. So that's when my dream about masters started, and robotics has been a passion of mine since like childhood. I've been working on that. My internships are all based on that. Whatever the work I've made till now, everything is based on robotics. So that's how I've chosen to pursue masters.
Right. And I'm sure robotics is a field that a lot of students are interested in. Could you name like a few universities in which you applied for your masters?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, I'll come from how I shortlisted the universities. Uh, Again, I'm telling, I just shortlisted universities which only have robotics course. Many people, when they are going for masters, they just shortlist universities based on various aspects, how feasible they are, how economical, and everything. But for me, robotics is a major deal, right? So I've chosen universities based on if it's giving robotics as a course offering. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are prominently 12 to 13 universities in USA which are offering robotics course as of right now. I might have missed a very few universities. Those are very small universities. Uh,
Yeah.
Among those 13, there are 5 to 6 Ivy League colleges, and the remaining are normal A-grade colleges. So you need to evaluate your own profile and choose which universities will actually admit you, will actually have a chance to admit you. You just can't go on applying for Ivy League colleges, right? I'm sure anyone would know that. So the universities, after carefully assessing profile by myself, I've applied to our Arizona State University, Northeastern, University of Cincinnati, and Stevens Institute of Technology. These are the four universities I've applied to. Oh wait, Oregon State University as well.
Right. So when
Yeah.
you say that you have to match your profile with the university, what exactly are you talking about? How do you create a profile that is particularly fit for universities? Are there certain criteria which are given by the university, or do
Ex-
you gauge them yourself?
Exactly. Some universities, specifically Arizona University, actually asks you uh, about what are the courses you have done till now in BTech and if they're actually useful for the robotics. Let's say robotics has 4 or 5 prerequisite courses. If you haven't done them in BTech, then there's no need to apply because those are actually the prerequisites. Some of the colleges actually look for such issues. So okay, you need to assess your profile because you just can't jump from one branch to another branch, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I'm a mechanical engineer, so I just can't apply for a data science profile because I don't have any background in that. They won't even admit me. They'll be like, "Who are you? Why should we even admit you?" So you need to assess your profile by yourself. Am I suitable for this? Will they allow me? Did my work reflect on the area I'm going to apply for? These are all the careful things you need to look out for. Okay, so
Yeah.
by self-assessing, I meant that you need to actually uh, look into the courses you are going to apply for. Just don't just blindly search for the interesting courses or the university websites. Go deeper, dive deeper, and see what the course curriculum is, and if that's suitable for you, then only you need to focus on applying to them. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what was the strategy that you applied when you were like for all of these universities? Like, is
Yeah.
there yeah
As
any
a
specific
yeah,
country region?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that. As I already told, you just can't apply for masters just because foreign is a dream. Okay. Even in foreign, there are universities which are as bad as universities which are in India. You need to select based on the course, because by going there and spending so much money, if you choose a course which you're not interested in, then that's just waste of money. So the main strategy you're going to follow, which I suggest, is a course based strategy. Don't just follow many consultancies which actually look for the money you are going to offer them, will just ask you to go to data sciences. That's what 70% of the Indians are going on about. Okay, just don't go to masters in USA or masters in Germany just because it's easier to get an admit. Select by course, whatever the course you are interested in. See, after BTech, at least in the masters, you have variety of options. You need to choose properly. That's where your career starts actually if you're going for further studies. So the strategy I followed was, as I already told, I'm very much interested in robotics. So I narrowed down all the colleges whichever are actually providing the robotics course. And in robotics as well, robotics actually has many parts, as you know. It deals with artificial intelligence, it deals with systems engineering, it deals with aerospace engineering. So if you're going for robotics in artificial intelligence, then that's just not going to suit you if you're a mechanical engineer. So that's one thing you need to be careful about. So the strategy I followed is whichever is actually suitable for me. I shortlisted all the universities, and then I approached few seniors of mine, and I asked them, what should I do, how am I going to proceed? And they helped me a lot in shortlisting the universities. And finally, I arrived at 5 universities which have higher chances of acceptance. I just can't go on applying to Ivy League colleges because I know my profile, I know my strengths, I know that many of the colleges won't accept. That's how I planned a strategy to have an actual efficient application process, to not waste a lot of money on applications. Okay, application fee costs a lot, so strategy is actually important for that. uh, and the reason why I chose US is for robotics specifically. And why I'm saying it particularly in the case of robotics is, I'm just stressing on the point why course is so important. For robotics specifically, the prominent countries are US, Germany, and Japan. uh, Topological conditions and everything, I've narrowed it down to US and Germany. And Germany is quite a difficult place to get admission because of all the free tuition. Many people apply to Germany, and you need to have very high CGPA and very high profile to get an admit into that. Also, not to mention, you need to learn German. It's a very tedious process. You know, not all universities require German language, but some of them do, which are actually good colleges. So I thought, why take such a tedious road when US also offer the same course? US is also quite a very good place for learning robotics. It's a booming industry, as we all know. So that's how I narrowed it down to US and 5 to 6 universities. That's how I chose what of the universities I was going to apply to. One
Right.
more thing. So if you are going, let's say I was talking about robotics. Let's say you're choosing automobile engineering, then you're going to go to Germany. Then you have to narrow it in Germany. That's why I was stressing out on course specific strategy. That's one thing to stress about. Don't just go to foreign just because you can go to foreign. You understand what I'm saying, right?
Right. So let's suppose I have narrowed down what field I want to go and which are the particular universities I want to go. Then what next? What is the application process? Like there are a lot of things I've heard about like TOEFL, GRE, GMAT, and
Yeah,
IELTS and all of them. So how
yeah.
to go
The
about
road
them?
the road to MS is a tedious one. Not gonna lie. It's actually uh, not tedious, very long actually. So the road to MS starts with, anyone would say, GRE exam. It's a bit different from this year because many universities have waived GRE off uh, because of the malpractice on GRE at home exams and all. Because of this COVID situation, many universities waived off the requirement. But let's assume we are going like every year. So let's assume GRE is there. So the first thing you're gonna do is complete all the prerequisites, that is GRE and a language proficiency test. So GRE test, depending on your proficiency in English and maths, you need to give yourself 1 to 2 months of time. I've given myself 40 days of time for GRE. I focused completely on GRE, and I've chosen center-based exam because of some issues with GRE at home based. Okay, right after completing of GRE, then comes the English proficiency test. There's no particular order; you can go either way. GRE English is actually quite difficult than whatever the English proficiency test has to offer. So I chose to complete GRE first, and then go with English proficiency test. TOEFL or IELTS are actually both same. It doesn't matter whatever you apply to. It used to be like this: IELTS for UK and TOEFL for USA, but it's all the same now. Every university in US is accepting every English proficiency test. Even they are allowing Duolingo English proficiency test. That's a new one. So whichever one is fine. Uh, take your time to prepare for them. Don't just go randomly giving the test because you have multiple options. Sorry, multiple time attempting option. Uh, give your best shot in the first attempt itself because it's a costly exam. GRE and IELTS combined will cost 30K INR. So it's a costly exam. Be careful. If you don't get it, then go for another round. No problem in that. But my advice is go for your best in the first shot itself. And then comes parallelly, you need to work on statement of purpose. You need to talk to professors for LORs. You need to you already shortlisted universities. So these are all the prerequisites: SOP, LOR, GRE, and IELTS scores. Once you gathered all of them, then comes the application part.
Right. So when you're writing essays, what are the things that people should keep in mind?
Yeah, coming to statement of purpose,
Yeah.
it should not be very long. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Because if it's actually very long, let's say 3 pages, two is actually the maximum extent you should write. If it's more than two or three, anyone would know that you're just blurting out random statements. All everything is superficial in there. So it should be short, not completely short, like 4 to 5 lines. It should be long enough. My ideal SOP should be 1.5 page, considering the size of the alphabets to be 12. Okay. An SOP should consist of why you have chosen that course particularly. What makes you think you are actually suitable for that course? This is how you should start your essay, and then go on about your academic achievements. Don't just boast about your achievements. Justify them. Why you are good at whatever you have done till now. If you have low CGPA, try to explain why you have low CGPA. CGPA is actually quite an important factor because of the waiving of GRE condition right now. CGPA is the only analytical estimate they have about you, apart from GRE and IELTS, of course. Considering GRE, they waived off. So IELTS, there is no high score, high acceptance rate criteria. You need to just have 7.5 or above, something like that. Anything is fine after that. So the CGPA is actually uh, dominant criteria for you. So if your CGPA is less, you need to actually justify why your CGPA is less. You need to explain to them whatever you have done till now and how it affected your CGPA, and you need to prove them that your CGPA can get better in future. Okay, you need to explain all of this, uh, arrange them in proper paragraphs. Don't just blurt out random statements here and there. And in the end, you need to actually explain. This is actually crucial part. Everyone would miss this. You need to explain why you're choosing that university particularly. I know many will write SOP as a common SOP for every university. Uh, it will be same. Not gonna lie, but the end paragraph should be different. You need to actually tell that university why you chosen that university, because in university's perspective, you need to actually write about that university. Right? They are asking for your statement of purpose, not the whole country. So You need to actually tell them, if possible, uh, do a little research on the course, do a little research on the professors who are actually going to teach your course, and tell them how their research is actually intriguing and all. That actually adds a lot of weight to SOP. That's my advice about essay. uh, one I can't really stress this enough. Don't just go on writing very very long paragraphs. It's not gonna help.
Right, there should be enough content to justify the
Yeah,
length.
yeah.
Okay, so when we talk about all of these academics, how where do the like extracurricular come in? Especially now that we are in at home for a year almost, and the
Yeah.
curricular part has dropped significantly. So if I want to justify my co-curricular work, how do I do that?
See, co-curricular activities, according to me, are divided into two types. One type is what you are doing for yourself, which is non-academic, but actually helps for length for your resume. Let's say you are a core at Technosian of our college first. Let's say you are a club member to some club which is non-relatable to whatever the course you're applying to. That actually helps us work experience, but they won't actually look into deeper into it. They just look it as another work experience and how you managed it. The
Right.
another type of extracurricular work is which actually academic. Okay, I personally have done robotic courses in Coursera, and I've done internship. These are our extracurriculars which actually helped to my application, right? So if you have so much of time in your hands, I suggest you move with extracurricular, which are actually academic. Okay, don't just go on do random works just because you have to spend your time productively. Spending productively is very different from spending productively which is useful for career. So when you are approaching third year, you need to actually focus on whatever you're doing. Just don't go doing random things here and there. If you are actually planning for masters, I strongly advise you to uh, focus on your career path from third year itself. I did a mistake there. That's why I'm going to advise everyone, don't do mistakes from third year. It's very important to plan ahead for masters. It's not a 1 month game.
Right.
Whatever the extracurricular you are choosing, it should be relatable to whatever the course you're going to, at least slightly relatable. If it's completely unrelatable, it just adds 2 or 3 statements to your resume. It's not going to add any weight to your resume.
Okay, cool. We'll keep that in mind. So these programs that we apply to, masters is said to be two years long.
Yeah,
And what would be like the approximate cost you're looking at when you are talking about a master's in USA or to Germany or
yeah.
Japan, like you said?
I'll just break it down. Masters in USA is actually a very vague question when it comes to cost, because there are universities which offer the course at very less price, and there are universities which offer it at very high price. I myself have seen universities which are actually offering robotics for 12k dollars a year, and parallelly 45k dollars a year. So you see the range, right? It's 11k to 45k. So economy is actually a big issue. uh, Coming to the strategy of planning universities, keep that in mind as well. Don't overburden yourself with education loans and all. uh, it Coming to cost, precisely, Germany is very cheap than US. Many of the public universities in Germany doesn't have any tuition fee, so whatever you are going to pay is for yourself, hostel, and some of the maintenance fee for hostel and all. It's very cheap compared to US obviously is a very costly investment for you. But if you're actually gonna work there properly and secure yourself a job, I say it's a better investment. But yeah,
Right.
an average cost a person should keep in mind is somewhere around 50 lakhs INR. If you go
So,
below that, it's just to make yourself feel better. It's not that cheap.
okay. So when you're talking about like 50 INR lakhs, so that's like just the tuition cost or the tuition and the residential and
That's
living
that's what
expenses.
that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. That's what I'm saying. Some universities have tuition costs. which will cap at 30 lakhs itself for 2 years. But your living
Okay.
expenses will be high. Some universities have tuition fee which will cap at 80 lakhs, only tuition fee. So
Right.
you know the difference. That's why I'm telling 50 lakhs should be your bare minimum. Anything less than
Okay.
that is just to make yourself feel better. It's gonna cost way more than that, including tuition fee, your stay, and your extracurricular, your extra expenditure and everything. It's gonna cost way more than that. So be ready for it.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
people just go on say it's gonna cost less than 50, less than 40 lakhs, then I don't know how they're planning it. I There are universities, I'm not gonna lie, which offer courses at 10k dollars per annum, which the whole masters will be done in 30 to 40 lakhs, but that's just bare minimum. So you asked the average question, and I'm saying the average 50 lakhs should be in your mind.
Okay. So when we are applying for this, there is like, since the cost is so high, the scholarship probability should also be there, right?
Yeah,
So um,
I'll just
so,
tell you about
yeah,
the
go ahead
scholarships.
about it,
uh,
please.
Scholarships are actually very difficult to get if your CGPA is less. By less, I mean anything less than 8. And in addition to that, US doesn't offer scholarships, many scholarships to Indian students. It offers scholarships to US citizens itself. I There are scholarships for Indians as well, but that's just very competitive. So if your CGPA is less than 8 or something, and if your academic achievements are less, just don't expect scholarships. And many of the courses specifically doesn't have scholarships. So if scholarship is your actual criteria, analyze your profile by yourself, choose courses which actually offer scholarships. Scholarships is actually very good idea for funding yourself, but not everyone gets that.
Okay, but when we are talking about scholarships, there are certain scholarships which are present before the admission, or they are all available only after you are admitted to a certain university.
Yeah, many of the scholarships which universities provide, many universities list out the scholarships available by third party also in university website itself. You understand what I'm saying? Whether or not you're going to get scholarships, if you're eligible for scholarships, like 90% of the universities, you can only apply to them if you get an admit into that. If you don't get an admit into that, why would they even show you the scholarships available? I mean, they will show you, but they won't give you any chance to apply for them. So once you get an admit, then you can go on research about it. That's why I'm saying give yourself 1 year of time for masters. It's not a 1 month
Right.
process. It's a time taking one.
Okay, so another option that I've heard about is TA, right? As a teaching
Yeah,
assistant, people
teaching
try to
assistants. Yeah,
go ahead.
coming to that, teaching. There are actually two types of assistantships. That is TA and RA. So you can apply for TA and RA prior to getting into university. I mean, right after you get an admit letter from the college. But as I've heard from many seniors of mine, it's not possible to get a TA or RA in the first semester itself. After going there, improve your contacts with professor to actually show them what your academic skill is, and then you can apply for them. It's not an impossible thing to get a TA or RA. It is possible, but I don't think it's possible before getting into university itself. I mean, there are ways to get a TA and RA before that. Not every university offers that. Okay. But TA and RA is actually very good option for financing yourself, because uh, many people told if you get an RA or a TA, they're gonna cover your entire tuition cost. What more do you need than that? You'll get additional work experience. If you're actually interested in teaching, the teaching assistantship will help you a lot. If you want to become a research scholar in the future, go for a research assistantship. Don't just go on choosing whichever is easier.
Right. So
Keep your focus, keep your future in mind, because the decisions you take right after BTech third year affects a lot. Actually, before that, I know it doesn't matter. As a person who's been there, it doesn't really matter. But right after third year, right from the third year, whatever the decisions you're gonna take them carefully.
okay, so let's see. Like even if like scholarship doesn't work out, TA doesn't work out, if you're looking at a person who is going for MS based on student loans. So, do you think there are good options for student loans and it is like a worthy investment?
I myself am a person who is going to masters based on student loan. Uh, so yeah, student loan is actually a very viable option because unlike TA, RA or scholarships, you will get loan. You might not get those three, but you will get loan. Uh, Coming to the question of is it better or not, I'd say it's better if you actually dedicate yourself in studies after going to US. If you're just gonna go to US to enjoy and chill, then I say it's not at all worth the investment. Uh, it's actually very good to apply for loan because burdening your parents for such heavy amount is not a good option. You need to become independent right after BTech itself. Uh, so yeah, education loan is actually very good option, and I hear it helps with your visa process. I don't know how sure they are, but if you actually take a loan and it actually makes a good impression on your visa officers. I don't know how that works, but yeah, people told me that. So
Right,
if you don't even if you have TA and RA, I suggest go with the loan because TA and RA initially won't cover your tuition fee. That part I know. So loan is actually a better option until or unless you have money.
right. So, like, what are the like there must be certain banks or certain institutes from which you are looking
Depends.
for.
See, if your parents are actually government employee,
Hmm.
many of the government employees have the salary credited to SBI.
Yeah.
So SBI offers education loan. So if you are going on education loan, or if you are going to finance your masters based on education loan, then your parents, being government employee, will actually choose SBI because it has a lot of better options. And coming to private banks, so not, I don't think they're private. I'm not quite sure. HDFC and DHFL has a very good education loan options as of now. I'm still checking them out. But yeah, if your parents are government employee, SBI is actually very good because while applying for visa, if they're gonna ask for statements, your parents' account statements, you can just show them directly. That's how you took the loan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so like coming on to what you just said about visa. So what are like the limitations there that are there for people after they go out and like the work permit, the student visa, all of those? What are the procedures involved in that?
Yeah. Once you get your hands on F1 visa, assuming you get accepted, many of you are gonna get accepted F1 visa. You should not work off campus in restaurants. That's off limits. You only have permit to work on campus, which are actually related to campus duties. You don't have permit to work outside of the campus. That's the maximum restrictions they're going to put on you, and some restrictions like driving license and all. Those are all very significant. So yeah, coming to work permit especially, you're gonna get a work permit to work wherever you want after 1 year or so. But for 1 year, it's just illegal to work in any restaurant. So if you're gonna think that I can go work in restaurant and cover my tuition costs, I don't know what to say. It's
All
illegal.
right. Okay,
You
we'll
can
keep
work
that
on
in mind.
campus. You can work on campus. In many of the universities provide in-campus jobs. You can search for them in university websites itself.
Right. So, what about like certain people prefer think about like going for a job for 2 years, like after BTech, making the placement, working for 2 years, and then using that 2 year work experience as an add-on when they're applying for masters. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's actually very good option when compared to applying for masters right after BTech. But that's just keeping a person's mindset in mind. See, many people when they go into corporate life once, they're just gonna lose interest in studying anymore until or unless you're very passionate about masters. Uh, do work for 1 or 2 years and then go for masters. That actually adds so much weight to your resume. You're gonna get acceptance way faster than anybody else. But that's just keeping a person's mindset. Many people will lose interest in studying after 1 or 2 years. I'm not assuming, that's just the case with me. I know for myself I'm going to lose interest in studies if I just give break. That's why I'm going to masters right after my BTech. I lost interest in studies because of quarantine only. So you know how it's going to be. So it's basically purely dependent on your mindset. If you're sure about yourself that you'll be passionate after 2 years also, then go for it. That's actually very better option. Adding a work experience will get an admission into very good college.
Right.
Not,
So when we talk about like masters, we go by the assumption that after masters we will definitely get a job. But as we know, like not just getting a job, the visa permissions, the restrictions that are there, what are the like have you planned about that? Like do you think about
yeah.
what you'll do or if you will prefer
Yeah.
moving to some
uh,
other country after getting your masters for the same?
I'll tell you. So visa doesn't hold you off after master's job. The visa you're gonna get, F1 visa, will permit you for 2 years of study and 2 years of work. Anything later, you need to extend your visa. You need to upgrade it to H1B, if I remember correctly. Uh, that's just a later work. Your company can take care of it if you're an actually good worker. Coming to, will these international programs help me get a good job? I just can't give any guarantee. Many people will join IIT. Many people will join IIT Bombay CSE, thinking that they're gonna get a job. That's not how it works, right? Many people join NIT Warangal thinking they're gonna get good jobs. That's not how it works. You need to actually work there. Just going into institute doesn't get you a job. Just going into an international program doesn't secure a job. You need to work there. There are a lot of opportunities there, but you need to work for it, right? uh, Work permit and student visa limitations and all are actually very insignificant. You need to actually work there. I mean, by work I mean study. Okay.
Yeah,
uh, F1 visa will deal with 2 years of additional work permit, and then later, anything later, you can update with H1B visa. That's not an issue at all. The only issue is you need to focus is just going into an international program won't help you get a job. You need to actually work there. It's actually very tedious than whatever you had in BTech life. So get ready for that. Whenever people say if you go to masters and get a degree there, it's very easy to get a job. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that. Many people are
right.
opting that.
Yeah,
So there are many applications, many potential members. So why will any company choose you? You need to work there as well. It's not as simple as that. So I can't
right,
guarantee that you might get a good job, but if you work hard, you have very good opportunities, like very good opportunities. That's
right.
as far as I can say about that.
Okay, so like this concludes our basic questionnaire on like MS and all the programs outside. So at the end of it all, what advice would you give to like you juniors and the future aspirants for these masters? I mean, I know you have said a lot during the call itself, but what else would you like to
Yeah.
add?
uh, I'd like to add things which I missed, the mistakes I've made, which I realized very late, and then I thought to myself I shouldn't have done that. Those are the things I'm gonna say now, and which will be actually very helpful to juniors or future aspirants. Don't start late at any cost. Don't think to yourself that 2 or 3 months is enough for masters. No, it's not. I myself thought that. It took 7 months of tedious preparation, tedious process. I know 7 months seems like a lot. You won't be working 7 months daily. It's just how it is. Masters is a very lengthy process. So give yourself a 1 year head start, a 1 year head start. And GRE preparation, until or unless you feel confident about yourself, don't go to any coaching institute. Self preparation is actually enough. If you have a feeling that you won't study by yourself, then go to coaching institute. But I strongly advise the otherwise. Prepare by yourself. I paid a lot for coaching and I didn't use it at all. That's one of the biggest regrets I have. So prepare by yourself. There are a lot of materials available online. Everything's online. Many coaching tutorials in YouTube as well. You'll get IELTS, TOEFL, GRE, everything in there itself. If you actually plan to do masters things seriously, that's actually quite sufficient for you. Even the materials are available online. We are BTech people, we know how to get them. That's the one main suggestion I'm going to give. Don't at all start late. One more important thing, I can't stress this enough. I have a brother, I stress this enough for him. CGPA is the most important thing. So whenever people come and say CGPA doesn't matter for masters, just tell them they're wrong. It's actually the most important thing. I seriously can't stress this enough. Some people told me CGPA doesn't matter in the first year, and I believed that. And look where it brought me. CGPA is actually very important. Don't lose focus on your CGPA. Uh, in the future years, they're gonna aware of GRE very rapidly. So CGPA is gonna be the only analytical way to measure you. So yeah, CGPA is very important. One and two, give yourself 1 year head start, and three, don't apply to universities just because your consultant is telling you to. Don't apply to university because they are easy to get into. Apply to universities focusing on whatever the course you're going to choose, because after masters, that's going to be your career. I know that we can jump from career to career. It's impulsive, but yeah, it actually plays a significant role. If you go for masters, do, let's say, data analytics, and want to do another job, you can't really answer if they ask question, why did you do data science in masters? So course is actually very important. Don't neglect at all these things. Right from third year itself, focus on your career. Don't think final year is actually there to do all these things. Final year, many people will think that it's easy because we have very less classes to worry about, very less exams to worry about, so we can take care of all things. No, it doesn't work like that. When you come to final year, all your mind can do is enjoy. So you need to
Right.
give yourself, an year head start. Start working from 3-2, as 3-2 itself. Wait, start working from 3-1 ending itself. 3-1 ending itself, if you start working and you complete your exams and everything by 3-2 ending, by 4-1, uh, you need to actually be ready with applications, because many of the universities have deadlines in December itself.
Yeah, right.
Also one more thing, be friend as many professors as you want. Choose professors. LORs are actually very important criteria. If you just go on taking LORs from random professors, which offers superficial explanation about how good you are, that doesn't actually add any weight. You need to have a LOR from the professors which actually know you, who actually know you, uh, with whom you actually worked with. Don't just go on asking LORs, random professors, whoever taught you. It doesn't work like that. Be careful with every step. Every step matters, right from the GRE to the last application payment. Every step matters. Everything is significant. The only thing insignificant would be additional irrelevant work experiences in resume. Everything is significant. Your SOP, your LR, your GRE score, your IL score. One more thing, universities say they waived off GRE score, but there's still an option to upload your GRE score. So that's an additional benefit. Okay, so GRE, IELTS, your SOP, your LOR, your resume. Resume is also very important. Carefully assess your resume, carefully organize your resume. Don't just add very trivial things to that, don't add all the courses you have done, insignificant courses and everything. Add significant courses, make it good looking, make it professional, don't make it goofy and all. So yeah, as I was saying, GRE, IELTS, resume, SOP, LOR, CGPA, these are all the important things you're gonna have. So focus on all of these things. Transcription, all you're gonna get in college, not a big issue. So if you're an actually aspirant of masters, give yourself a 1 year head start and then focus on it. It's not gonna be easy, but the end result will be equally happy. So it's your wish.
All right. Thanks a lot, Janak, for that. I'm pretty sure the student will find it very helpful. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.